Honestly, at the end of the day, making a really dope sounding soulful beat really just boils down to picking the right sounds, whether you're using a sample or you're playing all of the instruments, and just knowing what to do with all those sounds in terms of velocities and articulations. And of course, if you don't know what to do, that's where I come in. What's going on, guys? It's your boy 8 Bars, and today I'm gonna let you guys in on my process for how I would actually make a soulful sample type beat that I would send to Rick Ross. I'm gonna give you guys some tips on how to make your drum sound more live, even if you just have one shots. I'm gonna show you my thought process around how I like to sequence out some of my beats, and I'm gonna show you guys some of the VSTs and libraries that I use, including how to make some of your stock sounds sound good. Tip number one is, if you can't play instruments, just find a sample. And if you need help finding some dope samples to start you off, I'll leave a few links to mine in the description. So here, I'm gonna go step by step and show you guys the process for the beat that you just heard. Now, I'm one of those producers who usually always starts with some kind of a melody. So for this beat, I started off with a sample just so I could get the vibe. It's a really dope sample that I found on Splice. And then for me, even when I'm using my own original samples, I almost never like to loop a sample. So what I did was I chopped it up, and this is the result. Now, usually once I get the main melody right, that's when I like to go in and add my drums, which leads me to my first tip for the drums. Because a lot of people ask me, how do I get my drums to sound live when I'm not playing the drums live, or if I'm not using one of those drum plugins like Addictive Drums or something like that? And there's three really simple answers to that. Answer number one, which sounds obvious, but a lot of people don't get it, you gotta pick the right drum sound. So for this one on the drums, I kind of want to go with like a Bing, Justice League, Just Blaze kind of drum. So mainly what I'm looking for is drums that are really hard, really punchy, and sound more live. So here's the kick. And tip number two for getting your live drums to sound better is velocity. So as you can see here, I don't have my drums hitting as hard as they can possibly hit on every single note. What I do is I vary my drum velocities, and it sounds more like you have an actual person playing the kick drum. Next, I added in the snare. And then here's another cool thing that you can do from time to time with your snare drums. You see how I have these two really quick snare hits going right here? That's me trying to emulate something that drummers do from time to time called a flam. And if you listen to producers like Just Blaze or Jake One, they do that from time to time in their beats. And then tip number three for getting your drums to sound more live, don't play everything perfectly on the grid. So as you can see here with the hi-hats, I have almost all of the hi-hats at a different velocity, and none of them are perfectly on the grid. And that basically just goes to help give the hi-hats a more human feel. And then last for the drums, I added this tambourine. The next thing I added to fill out the core of the beat was this bass line. And for the bass line, I just used the Scarby Rickenbacker bass. And now for most people, in terms of the core, that's really it. But for me, I like to add some of my own instruments for the beat, especially during the hook, just to fill it out a little bit more and make it more my own. So the next thing I added was this violin, and the library that I used for it was LA Scoring String. And here's what that sounds like. Now, next up, I kind of wanted to add like a guitar sound to the beat. And I was going through a lot of the guitar sounds that I had, but none of them really sounded right. So believe it or not, what I did was I went to the FL Studio library. I went into packs, instruments, guitar, And then I just use this guitar sound right here. I loaded it up over here, and then here's the sauce. I opened up Guitar Rig and then just ran it through Guitar Rig, and here's what it sounds like. I mean, it's not the most realistic sounding guitar that you're gonna get, but it still fit the beat. And I didn't have to go out and buy an expensive guitar plugin or library. And really for the guitar amp, a lot of these DAWs now have some really good sounding guitar amps too, so you don't have to go out and buy one of those either. Next up, I just added this piano stab. Got that real easy from Nexus. And then the last sound that I have in this beat, just to give you a little bit of ear candy and make the beat sound more full, is this harp sound. And believe it or not, to play the harp like that, all I really did was I took my hand, ran it against the keyboard in the parts that I wanted the harp to play at, and then I just went into the piano roll and adjusted the notes so that they sounded right. And then from there, it's really just about sequencing out the beat. So the way that I like to sequence out my beats is I like for my beats to feel like they're, one, telling a story, and two, in most cases, I like for them to feel like they're building up to something really big in the hook. So I start off with just the drums, the sample, and the bass. Second half of the verse, I just add in the guitar. And then for the hook, you just bring everything in. So that's it for today's beat. And from here, what I'll most likely end up doing is bouncing the stems from FL and then load them into Logic and then maybe add a couple of extra touches to it. Honestly, at the end of the day, making a really dope sounding soulful beat really just boils down to picking the right sounds, whether you're using a sample or you're playing all of the instruments, and just knowing what to do with all those sounds in terms of velocities and articulations. And of course, if you don't know what to do, that's where I come in. Now, if you like this video and you thought any of this was helpful, consider hitting the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does help out. If you want to see more videos from me, consider subscribing. And if you never want to see me again, I still appreciate you anyway.